only thing I most about is that.
So then if you looked and that's what we figured out, then let's just do it the other way. So I want to be realistic. I don't want to.
No, and I just, the more I started looking at it, I was like, oh, so Stephen,
Okay. And that's fine. I mean, like 3 years, or I mean, if that's really the reality of it, then we need to take our best guess at it, right? But we can always update it.
Well, I think that's.
Let them know. I mean, we need what, 3 positions at this point?
And that's fine. So I think making calls like that is totally the right thing to do, and not worry about it too much.
But I do have a lot of.
Awesome, thank you. I found most of those definitions for those different acquisition. I guess those things have ways I can make sense. And I think that's better than no definition, so I don't want to worry about it too much.
Right.
So, okay. We had a deadline of this year, but it's really something. It doesn't come right out of it. We'll finish it up when we're ready, so. Well, this can definitely be, because it's close, and we just need the data, and when we have the data, we'll definitely, so, and we can choose to, the real interesting one to me is the Century Line.
Should we get this meeting going? No worries. So let's call to order the meeting of the Open Space Advisory Committee for the Town of Superior on December 13th, 2017. Just do a quick roll call across the board. Ken Lish, Committee Chair.
Joel White, committee member.
Tracy Collar, member.
Sean Samuelson, member.
Ryan Welch, member.
Tricia Dunham, vice chair.
Mark Leases, Town Board Liaison.
Allison James, Town Liaison.
All right. We have no public, so no public comment. And then just to make sure it's publicly announced so that we can advertise the position, Sarah has resigned from OSAC, so we now have 3 available positions. So anybody and everybody, if you know people who want to join, please pass the word along. So jumping into the 2018 work plan. So to jog everybody's memory, where we left last month, we started pulling the work plan together, and then kind of got sidetracked a bit on what do we really want to accomplish for the year. Do we really want to keep putting down the same old things, or do we want to set kind of a bigger goal? And where we left it was everyone was going to go back and think about both large, big rock priorities that could be kind of year-long projects, something that we truly want to accomplish for the year. Thank you. And then if there's any other smaller items that we could add, just as kind of tasks so we could check off throughout the quarters, then we could do those as well. So my thought is the easiest way to start is we've got the list of items that everybody submitted. Let's see if this is big enough.
Thanks for the vision assist.
Yep. Is that big enough for everybody? All right. So what I thought we could do is just go through each person, talk about what they meant by this, and just real quick touch on it. So I'll start up there. So the only thing I had for the big, large item that I thought we should tackle was Shan Shan. It's been something in the making, and I think this is a year that we could try to start actually solidifying and putting things into a concrete plan. Ryan?
Yeah, so mine is around what Tracy was talking about after the COSA conference was just understanding other alternatives that we might have for funding if a property were to come open. You know, Tracy, I stick to that, but you were talking about like the Gates Fund and all these other sources that aren't necessarily traditional organizations that fund land purchases, but money's available. So I think for me, just to understand that better, that's where I'm coming from with that one.
And is the hope, once we understand it, is to try to see, A, if we're allowed to, but B, to start to develop relationships and try to figure out how to have these relationships set up that way if a opportunity does present itself, we can jump on it?
Ideally, I think that would be awesome if we could get that far. Now, I don't know if that's blurring the line between what we're supposed to do and what staff
allowed
does.
to do. Yeah.
So I think that would be
So
something
getting
to
clarity around
discuss.
all of this.
Yeah. Because I also think that I understand the town sales tax, but I don't understand the bond issue and how that comes into what money's available. So even understanding that level, I think would be a good start.
All right. Excellent.
I mean, well, anyway, no.
Well,
Well, I was going to say, you know, I think another step would be just go talk to Boulder County, potentially. I don't know how that would work or if that would work, but, you know, they're buying land and they have certain priorities and they have certain techniques they use. Seems like we could learn a lot from them. Turns out I went to high school with a gal that's on the open space, works for Boulder Open Space. I just learned that this weekend, so
Oh.
I found it in. So
Nice.
I don't know exactly what she does, but someone to talk to.
Perfect. So as we go through it, also, it might be useful if we just also circle back to what we already have. I know that we have Shan on here as a starting place for talking to the board, so that ties into what I was just talking about. And then we also
Mhm.
have the cultivating relationships and starting to move in that direction for talking to the board. So we'll tie into that to see if we already have it reflected in our draft. Sean?
Yeah, so Town 15 usage ideas. There's been some discussion around what to put on there, and I feel like OSAC should have some ideas we should put forth to what we could potentially put on there or keep open. I know that there's been discussion around a rec center potentially or a library. Within our committee, we have discussed potentially an equestrian center. So since it is not written in stone what that is to be used for yet, I feel like if we can put something forth, since it's right on borders open space land, and I know some of the people around there wouldn't mind keeping that open or used in a open space way. I think that's something we should probably try to ponder a bit and put forth a proposition. Jeffco reach out. That's kind of in conjunction with the CenturyLink land, although it could be more than that. Originally it was with the CenturyLink land, since part of that land is in Jefferson County. And since CenturyLink owns it both in Boulder County and Jeffco, I thought it might be a good idea to reach out to them to see what they might have in mind, or if they want to potentially co-sponsor that or whatever, since I'm not sure, since it's cut across 2 different counties, how that would work out. So other things we can talk to them about is the expressway that is going through there, as well as the National Wildlife
Rocky Mountain
Greenway.
Greenway,
Yeah.
yeah. And then the Shan Trail we've already discussed for the large items.
Okay. So we have Town 15 on our agenda to talk with the board. Jeffco reach out. So we have somewhere in here to, I can't remember where we had it, to continue to reach. Here we go. Revisit previously identified open space. Oh, nope. Well, we have Jefferson County in here. But I think we also have something in here to meet with neighboring jurisdictions. What quarter did we have that in?
Was that ongoing, maybe?
Yeah, there it is.
There you go.
Continue to pursue regional collaboration with other open space committees. I think, I imagine that still meets what we'd like, especially because we didn't get a chance to meet at Broomfield, so maybe we do Broomfield and Jeffco next year if we get the opportunity. So.
Do we
I
want
don't
to
know.
put down specific points of interest, why we want to meet with them though? For those couple of reasons? I mean, rather than keeping generalized and open-ended. I mean, that's fine with me, but sometimes it's good to have a couple of points we are very interested in since we cover them every meeting, particularly the.
I think it's good to have that. I don't know if reflecting in the work plan is the right spot.
Okay.
Just because I'm getting into too much detail. Yeah. So then last, we have Shan Shan, and then CenturyLink Land we have reflected in. Okay. Tracy?
So Ryan already touched on the alternative funding, but like we talked last meeting, I'd like to actually do a little research, like reach out to BOCO first and a few other things from the COSA conference, and you might have some.
Can you do your mic?
Sorry, you might have some
Leads you learned about the COSA conference last year as well, but do that before the dinner with the board. When is that supposed to be?
That normally is scheduled at the beginning of the year, but I don't know if they're scheduled yet.
It's usually falls in January or by the first week of February. It falls in there.
Yeah.
You know, so it's sometime in that first 5 weeks.
Yeah,
of
Allison
the
or Mark, do you
year.
guys have any information on when they're scheduled yet?
I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
Allison?
So maybe we have at least a little bit of time, so we can at least talk knowledgeable on it. And then let's see what else. We already talked about Town 15. So within Shan Shan, on the list, Ken, on our actual work plan, what does it say?
Historic elements.
Okay, good, and
Community
it's already got
collaboration,
community. Great.
parking, access, amenities.
Perfect, okay. And then what was the next one? Rocky Flats education, do we put that anywhere? So, more so should that get developed, or I guess when it's about to be developed, so people do know the health consequences, i.e. spreading potential contaminants onto our open space. I don't think that is anywhere out there.
No,
is
I don't
it?
think we have anything specifically Rocky Flats related.
Okay. So it's an idea. I mean, it's not a must, but it looks like it was on Tricia's list too, so.
Okay, so I think that's the only one we don't have reflected on right now, so we'll
Okay.
keep that, we'll circle back to that. Dog
Sure.
education, was there anything?
Oh, yeah. I don't think did we have that anywhere?
I don't think so. I think we removed the reference from last year that
Okay.
talked about off-leash issues.
So that was more different signage, different ways of educating, as in, things that I learned that Jeffco was doing, like super short videos, 10 seconds, 30-second videos, putting them on social media to actually catch people's attention because everyone has a shortened attention span anymore. Different signages that is more appealing, more visual, poster boards, things of that nature. And some different swag that might be beneficial. Again, not a must, but an idea. If we see that that's still a problem on open space, which I certainly see that it is.
Okay, perfect. So we've got those two thus far as the outstanding that we don't have incorporated thus far.
As a total aside, did you see that Louisville was having a town meeting, I think, tonight on the Davidson Mesa Dog Park?
Tonight or tomorrow.
Oh,
night,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's real soon
I
about
think it
the
was
same
tonight, yeah.
issues that Jeffco was having with other parks, so.
But I thought that I read that they were going to close the dog park.
I think it's
at
one
Davidson
of the
Mesa.
options
Oh,
that's
okay,
being
so it's not a must yet.
considered.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it seemed
Gotcha.
like the dog waste was one of the issues. I just glanced at it really
Yeah.
quickly, but it's coming up again.
That's a challenge.
Yeah. Tricia?
So Shan Shan, obviously. For the second one, the promotion of open space activities education. I just feel like, I know we've done some of it, and Ken, you've done a really good job of getting it out on the CAC and things like that, but I think that's one of the things that we do. The funds part of Ashley's work, and I think it's one of the things that we benefit, so I'd like that to stay on and be something we really try to promote. My family and I actually do make a number of the events when sports doesn't conflict, but I think that's something that we really do great. The same thing with the Rockies Flats education. I think that's one of the ones that I don't know that there'll be any stoppage of that, so I think we want to have awareness of that, so that should stay on the list. Ellison, I know last year there was some things that the town did with some of the signs, right? You guys replaced some of them, but I always think like wayfinding, like when you hear from people, they don't know where to go when they come up to certain things, and I think that's something that we should, if we take it on, obviously we would work with ProStack on it, but I think that, you know, having people be able to navigate to all the open spaces and know that. And we've talked a couple of years about at what point do we try to say, can we name any of these open spaces more than what they've been for, you know, things like that.
Well, the last actually couple of years when this wayfinding first came out, the town has been working in conjunction with other Boulder County municipalities in a trail application, and we just have sent letters of support for grant funding for this trail app. We've been working on GIS maps and collaborating with all of the different municipalities and National Park, and trying to get all of our maps to be comprehensive. So I think that was, and we've been talking about, we've been doing it for a couple of years now.
Yeah. So if that happens, though, I think some, like, so for example, Shan Shan, we keep calling it Shan Shan. Like, is that what everyone wants the official name to be, or something else? And there's some other spots in town. So Coyote Ridge is named Coyote Ridge, but there might be some.
Well, it's more of a mapping. So the naming isn't really the primary goal. It's like getting people from one place to another and seeing the locations on a map, like how do I get to this trailhead to park to access this loop, or, you know, so really the naming isn't even included because it gets really cluttered, because a lot of the data is, can I take a horse on this trail? Can I, is it a single track trail, or is it like accessible, or, you know, so the more stuff that like names, unless it's like a major
That's fine, but I think
hasn't
even
been put
within
on
the
it.
town, though, we might want to think
Right.
about that on our, you know, our stuff. So that's why I put that on there. And, you know, every time we are out at outreach things, you know, one of the biggest educations that I think we've done, and with the maps that, you know, staff did for us and things like that, really shows to people, like, we don't own that whole southeast corner of town, so anything we can do about alternative funding and and ways to acquire, especially the CenturyLink, you know, how we could work with that, I think is always going to be a priority.
All right.
Just to clarify though, Allison, you were talking about like the whole statewide GIS mapping program, I feel like, and Trish, you're talking about the wayfinding, which Louisville did that huge wayfinding thing like 2 years ago, and signage, actual signage on.
Yeah, I
is
was
that
also
correct?
thinking signage, you know, on.
Or were you talking about mapping? I just
No,
was confused.
I knew there was some things with mapping, but I also think signage for people in town, and I know that at one point some of the wildlife signs you guys were replacing, or they were getting old and falling down. So
Right.
I think that's one of the things that should always sort of stay on our radar, to make sure that, you know, we have all this nice amenity, and we should be promoting it to its best ability, I think, for our citizens.
Allison, was Parks and, not the town, but was ProStack doing a wayfinding signage? Did I read that on one of their agendas, or did I dream that up?
I'm not sure
Okay.
what they're specifically doing at
Okay.
this
I don't know
moment.
if
So
I saw
it,
you know, Ken?
just like it's been on our work plan for like 2 or 3, maybe 4 years now, it's also been on theirs.
Okay.
It's been one of those, my understanding is a town goal, you know, it's going to be something that the planning commission was also going to be a part of. So it wasn't going to be either us, again, this is my understanding, nothing's happened for years, so maybe it's no longer the right understanding, but it was my understanding planning commission was going to be the leaders on it, and that us and ProStack would be contributors and work on it. I've had no communication about this issue at all for a long time. So we still have participate in the town's wayfinding project on our ongoing, if that ever does get kicked off. I mean, that might be something that we bring up with the board at our meeting and say, hey, is this a project looking for a leader, and are we the right leaders, or is this just not a project that we're considering anymore? I mean, I mean, it's worth the conversation because I don't think anybody knows right now.
Well, and I think to your point, Ken, we're trying to make the work plan be a realistic document and be what's worked, not just,
Yeah, over and over and over.
everything under, I mean, we really are trying this year to have it be like what it's worth. So if they don't want that as a project this year, then it should move over to somewhere that says, it wasn't identified as a project for 2018, but maybe you discuss it again in 2019, at the same time next year.
Yep. So we got Shan Shan on there. Promotion of open space. So
I'm
just-
saying, I'm just saying that should always be something that we have as one of our core things, is the promotion of the education that we do, like through Ashley and the events that we do. So I don't know, we probably have that identified, but when I was doing the email, I wasn't looking at this list, so I was thinking.
I don't know if we have it actually reflected anywhere on the work plan. I think it's something that's always been done, but I don't know if it's ever been reflected.
Well, we've always done, and we just did it, when did we do that, Allison? October? We did that, I mean, we always do it in the fall. You and Ashley meet and we try to figure out like what are the 10 things we're going to do. But I think also
Yeah.
one of the things we should also be doing is promoting that really every
Right.
month and
Well,
make sure the events are attended.
Yeah, and what Patricia's right. What we typically do is I've already met with Ashley for this past year. We went over all the numbers. I took the information from our last meeting that we talked about that the group wanted to add, and we kind of tweaked the existing programs to contain some of that information because we thought that a wholesale change wasn't necessary, but we just kind of tweaked with new information that was kind of brought up by the group. And typically, Parks and Rec, we send out our different guides. So the next guide that'll be coming out will be winter, spring, and Ashley will have, a couple of hikes in there. So we typically do blasts the week of, and then we have our marketing material that'll be sent to homes and or in the newsletter and or an e-blast. So we have like kind of like a four-pronged approach of trying to get the word out. And so that's what we do. And then Ken has started to send things out
CAC.
through the CAC, the Community Bulletin Board. And so that's working really well, I think. And I just send Ken the information and he sends it out.
So one thing I do see here that I think we might be able to, or we could consider to capture all four of the things that aren't necessarily reflected in the work plan right now, is this basically looks to me like overall outreach / education to the community. Is should we maybe add something? Looking at what we have here, our first quarter is pretty full. Maybe in the second quarter, we could add a item of evaluate outreach opportunities, and then we could list these topics, or
That actually sounds good, and at that point, hopefully, we will have had the dinner with the board, and we'll have things that are either added or taken off from, the plans, right, of where we should focus.
And if we do it early in the quarter, it's before the events that we
Yes.
have, so that's
Yeah.
good timing.
and just because I don't think the sequential order they're put in now necessarily reflects when we'll do it. So,
Sure.
How did I say that? Evaluate outreach opportunities.
Yep. And then underneath it, or if you want to put parens, you can put like the dog education, like all the little things.
Should I just do example and grab all the things that we listed?
I think that's good.
Yep.
Dog education, Rocky Flats, Rocky Mountain, Greenway, educational events. Did I miss something? Rocky Flats, promotion of open space activities and education, Rocky Flats. Okay. So are we good?
Yep.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. Joel, did you have anything that you wanted to just throw out there that
Yeah.
hasn't been listed yet?
Yeah, the three things that are on my list have been covered by other people. Shan Trailhead, I think, to me, is pretty clear. The number one thing that I would like to see accomplished, or at least get moving next year. And then the thing that continually comes up every time that I work a booth or talk with people in the community is the CenturyLink property. And, oh, that's not town property, and, well, can we use it? How do we buy it? We can't let that go, those types of discussions. And so, anything around funding, talking to the parties that be, Boulder County, Jefferson County, those things, I think, like others have talked about, that's a big priority to me. And then with Rocky Flats, I mean, I think it's still back to schedule where it's looking like summer. They're going to do some sort of opening. And what the impact of connections and or Rocky Mountain Greenway, the trails that go through there, and how they tie into our open space and trails, as well as what the impacts of them are.
So most of that, would you consider is referred
I think you've covered everything that I had on my list.
Okay. So let's jump down into the small items that we all listed. So for me, I would like OSAC to continue providing open space related feedback on developments presented to the town, regardless of the stage of the development. So whether that's the concept plan or an FDP or whatnot. Again, I touched on this briefly last meeting, but in my mind, the earlier we can provide input, the more likely it is to actually be worked into the final plan. So I think that's just something that, in my mind, we should stay cognizant of and just provide input when we can.
I agree with you, but what was the feedback we got from the board on that? I thought there was some talk that we could only provide feedback at this point in time.
So we didn't get.
Refresh our memories.
We didn't get exact feedback from the board. I was told by the assistant town manager, Martin Toth, that it is evidently staff policy that the committees have an opportunity to actually review during one of our meetings final plans. We had talked about in our meetings concept plans at times, and then I had gone and provided that feedback to the board during public comment. So we'd kind of gone through an unofficial route before the whole Zaharias debacle. None of that had ever been communicated. So I think discussing this with the board, or at least saying this is something we want to continue to do, is worthwhile.
So Ken, are you asking to put that on our work plan and then have the board tell us
So last
yay or nay?
last month we added clarity on committee input on all development plans.
Okay.
So we have it. Yeah, I mean, my concern is I don't want us, and I don't want to do something in a board meeting that will get us into trouble. I don't want to run afoul of the board. I don't want to lose the board's trust and put us in a position where we have less input into the town because people have kind of written us off. So I want to know exactly what our boundaries are, and in my mind, it makes sense for us to be able to provide comment at all levels, but I think bringing that to the board and getting their input is important.
I'll just say that I think it's good that you're putting it on the work plan. I think it's something that's important for us to discuss. You guys are an advisory committee, so I think you should be doing what you're doing, which is advising the board on any and all aspects of things within your charter. So I will vigorously fight any and all efforts to oppose that in any way. I think the only kind of area where I think there's been kind of clear, not necessarily consensus, but some agreement is, and this isn't necessarily related to OSAC necessarily, but this is related to any and all things considering the town, there's a reluctance for allowing somebody to go rogue. Whether, you know, and I'm not saying that you did that, Ken, or anybody did that.
Yeah.
You know, the board is sensitive to an individual board member going off and speaking on behalf of the board when it doesn't necessarily represent the board as a whole.
Yep.
And I think that by extension applies to the planning commission, to OSAC, to PROSTAC, to all the advisory committees as well.
Yep.
So I think as long as you guys are advising and not necessarily, you know, advocating, then I think totally fine. And you can still advise as long as you're just not, you know, going out and actively lobbying without the board's approval.
The only other thing I would say to that, just for all of us to know, we're also citizens of the town. If you feel you want to advocate for something, you can advocate as a citizen of the town. You just have to be clear that you're not speaking
For OSAC.
for OSAC, but you certainly have the right to advocate or go to any board meeting and
Mhm.
speak what you want to speak at public comment.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's definitely there's a lot of disagreement amongst the board.
Mhm.
And this is something that, you know, that I certainly care about. Just making sure that people understand the issues, and I don't want people to jump to any sort of conclusions and say like, this is our policy, without actually thinking it through to see whether it actually makes sense.
Agreed. So,
So I think it's good that you're putting it on there so we can all have a discussion about it, because then we could avoid problems before they emerge.
yeah. Perfect. The other one I had was I'd like OSAC to get much more familiar with the town's finances that relate to open space, which includes just the open space fund within the budget and all open space related line items in the budget. I think this actually kind of ties back to what Ryan was talking about earlier. At a minimum, understanding bond issues.
Yep, but I think that's a good addition, because there's also expenses that come out of the open space
Yeah.
that I don't know if we necessarily grasp what all those are, and it's just good for us to know. I think that's an easy one. I think it should be, maybe not, but I'd like to know that.
In my mind, what this would look like is where we schedule an agenda item on a meeting where we have town staff, whether it's Allison Patrick or whether it's someone from the finance group in Paul's team, that comes in and actually walks us through not only what's in the budget, but also the expenses that come out of the budget on a yearly basis. So I would be looking for it just to be one agenda item, probably in the third quarter, because that's where we're fairly light. Ryan, did you?
Yeah,
want
so
something?
I struggle to keep all our maps and all our documents current, so I'd like to develop a way for us to have a repository of that everyone can access and we can update when needed. I think that's fairly simple, but I'd like to tackle that one.
Side note, my husband works in storage, so computer storage, so you have
Okay.
at least a information bank there.
Okay, cool.
Okay. I think this is something we need to do. I think the logistics of figuring it out is going to be a little difficult, whether it has to be something that the town houses or whether we can house it as OSAC, as we're a town committee. I don't know if that gets a little tricky since it would
We'll
be
need some
stored
guidance on
privately.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's worth putting on the work plan though, so we can actually sit down and tackle it.
I like that idea because I'm constantly going back to email, searching, a year's worth of email, trying to find one document. So
Yep.
having those in some sort of online or cloud collaboration thing, I think would be great.
Definitely made things much easier. Sean, you want to?
Yeah, so the first bullet, I'm not sure is a point to do anymore since the plan already came out with all the feedback, so I'm not sure that would matter at this point. The second bullet, I'm not sure the exact timeline of when the pros master plan is going to be drafted, if it's next year, what the plan is. But I just want to make sure that we're involved in reviewing that after it has been drafted to make sure it's in sync with what we've written or what Ryan is going to be getting feedback on tonight for our OSSRR.
Need to come up with a better name. don't
Yeah.
we? Oh, sir. Those are like slurring it.
And then
After one too many.
The last bullet kind of goes to the stuff we'd already talked about, except mine was a minor point about providing a superior slant brochure of Rocky Flats.
Okay.
So just having some kind of a hard document on
Yeah.
Trails Day available that we want to put together.
I think that falls to what we wrote,
Right.
what we had on. So just, did anybody watch the ProStack or read the ProStack minutes from their last meeting?
Mhm.
So,
Oh, they actually had those? They have
I haven't
been
actually
posting regularly, so.
I haven't seen the minutes from ProStack. I watched the video. So they went over their work plan as well. The Prost master plan was discussed. It is something that they're going to be adding an emphasis on. I don't think they know exactly what they're going to do with it because it's a gigantic document. Whether they have the time, the willpower, the manpower, et cetera, to actually get that fully updated, whether there needs to be a consultant that gets brought in. I don't know if they know the answers to those questions yet. Based off my takeaway is they're probably going to bring that up with the board when they have their dinner with the board. I think this is an item where there might be some feeling of ownership on ProStack. Our OSRR is OSSRR is a piece of it. The rest, I don't know. And again, I actually haven't opened it and looked at it for a long time, so I don't know exactly what's in it, but I know the majority of it doesn't relate to open space. So if we were to try to bring up indicate our desire to want to review it or have a role in that process, that might be one of those items that kicks off some conflict. My personal view is, I think
I guess the question that we could get clarified is the OSSRR gets to go, does it get to go in, do they get to comment on that? Or does it go in as its section as it comes from here?
So that was another thing that they didn't have clarity on because they specifically mentioned that and had asked open-ended questions without answers of, are we going to look at this? Are we going to review it? Are we going to look what they have and then change it as we see fit to conform to the OSRR or their Prost master plan? I have strong feelings on that.
Who's they?
ProStack committee.
And they weren't saying one way or the other. They were literally just talking out loud about how all of this would work. So don't get me wrong that they're trying to change any of our stuff. That's certainly not what the discussion was.
I mean,
But
the first page of the document, though, says prepared for the Parks Rec Open Space and Trails Master Plan recommendation process. I mean, and that was copied from the original document, so it feels like this document fed into their document process, but it wasn't a piece of it. It was a resource for developing that plan.
I think it's in as an appendix
Okay.
or something along those lines. So maybe we can add something, provide feedback on the Prost master plan as necessary or something in ongoing, or I don't know.
Or maybe where requested. I don't know if it's where requested because they may not request
As I don't know
any
if
help.
There won't be requests.
Yeah.
I don't know, Sean. What do you?
Well, I mean, they have to take whatever we've written into account. I mean, that's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
They can't just, I mean, they can refer to our stuff and just say, well, again, I have to go back and look at the master plan as well, because I'm not exactly sure how it was written and how it references the work that we've done.
Mhm.
But I just want to make sure that what we've done is not left out or is not contradictory
So
to
maybe-
what we've written.
So maybe we say something along the lines of provide input on the Prost master plan as as necessary or as,
When they come to
But
the
we
point.
could even say regarding open space. I mean,
Yeah.
we could be very specific about
Yeah.
what area.
provide open space related feedback
To the
to the
pros.
pros master plan.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay.
Here's the master plan. So the master plan is 12 years old.
Yeah, that
What-
was,
Yeah.
That would require them letting us know,
Mhm.
or communicating with us when it comes to that point. And that's I wasn't sure when that point would be.
so we can also add that if we want to, as a discussion point,
See, OSAC members are even listed.
uh,
Yeah, I agree.
So, Ken, interesting, pulling up the old PROS master plan.
uh-huh,
They do list all the OSAC members as part of the process.
Okay.
On the old doc, so there's some precedent there for being involved.
perfect. So I just added it to our conversation with pro stag leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So trails are actually pros master plan, suburb. All right, so we got that covered. Before I circle back to add what Ryan and I had, if we're all okay with that, Tracy, I put all of yours into the upper area. Did you have anything else you wanted to add? Okay. Joel, did you have any small things?
No.
Okay. So, developing a way to store OSAC materials. I mean, is that something that we want to put, I mean, where do we want to put that?
I mean, does it need to go into the work plan?
Yeah, why would that?
I think, so the way, when I'm setting, so the way the agenda process works is Allison will ping the chair and vice chair of the committee about a week before every meeting. What I do, look for agenda topics. What I do is I go to our work plan and I look to see what we're supposed to have accomplished thus far in the quarter. And then I also go to our ongoing items to see if there's anything that could be thrown in depending on how heavy the agenda is looking. My biggest concern is if we don't have it reflected, it might fall through the cracks.
Okay,
Mhm.
that's fine, that's a good enough answer for me, that's fine.
Um,
But I hope to do that in Q1, because I'm
Yeah.
getting tired of finding.
And I
looking
think
for
that makes the
lots,
most
so,
sense because
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's, we find out, can we do it in some third-party thing, or do we have to house it somewhere, on the city's?
We just need to get one bit of clarification
Yeah.
if we can host it in a commercial tool or not.
If so, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't.
so
I mean,
some,
my initial thought would just be Dropbox, because that's what I use, and it's easy to use without needing the software, and
Yeah.
it works, so.
Dropbox, Google Cloud, I use Slack for a few different things,
Yeah, I mean,
which is,
They're all similar.
Yeah.
All similar.
I think everything's a public document.
That,
you're working with.
yeah, so I don't know
It's
that
out there
we're,
somewhere.
yeah.
And I guess as long as we keep that in mind when we put documents, that we don't put things that are in development, but they're actually public documents, and, okay, cool.
Like the maps that we've been using to submit to Boulder County for the trail requests and things, I mean, that's easy.
does that reflect, discuss shared stores for open space resources?
Yep.
Maybe just OSAC, I should say.
Well, but, I mean,
Should I
maybe
say
we
open?
wanted to, I mean, we'd like to maybe share it with ProStack, right? If we've got our Trails Continuity Doc in there and our maps, and,
Okay.
I mean,
That
but just
works.
leave it like that for now, and we can offer that.
Okay.
So I just did look through the master plan, and our stuff is summarized, but not whole, the OSSRR.
The entire document isn't really.
It's just reference. I just have one section that has the evaluation criteria and the priorities listed, but it doesn't list all the properties with the pictures and all
Oh,
of that.
man,
so-
I could have swore when Corey showed it to us at our leadership meeting, it had our entire document in there. Maybe he just, maybe he just printed it off. That's
It
probably
might
what
be
it
that
was.
he printed links or things in the back that said, if you want more information, go here, go.
I bet
here.
that's what it
Yeah.
was. Okay. And then, okay, so the town finance piece, that I said, was everyone okay? A, adding that, and then B, adding it into the third quarter when we have more time?
Mhm.
is that receive a presentation from town staff on open space related budget items and expenses.
Yeah.
Does that work for everybody?
Mhm.
Okay, so this was actually far less painful than I thought it would be. I think we've got everything in here now. I was concerned, we talked last month about throwing everything in the kitchen sink in here might overburden us. I don't think we're overburdened right now. I think when we have this meeting with the town board, we have some really big items in here that we're going to be talking with them about. And I think the feedback that we get from them might ultimately be our biggest guide and will determine how we spend the majority of our year. Maybe not the majority, but I mean, there's, depending on what, I mean, Shan could take a large portion of the year. If we were to do a full-blown public outreach on naming trails and open space, that could. Dog-related issues, I'm not sure that would be a huge year-long thing. Clarity, that's not year-long. Town 15, again, if there was any desire to do public outreach to see if a open space-related direction for that parcel is related, that would be a big undertaking. So I think whatever we hear from the board will probably dictate whatever our big focus for the year is. Okay, so does anyone have anything else they want to add to the work plan? Allison, I don't recall, do these have to be recommended for adoption, or could we just say this is the work plan?
Just, we usually just finalize it at the meeting, and then it's going to go forward at the next board meeting.
But we don't have to vote on it or anything.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Do we
Yeah.
have to vote on adopting
It's
this?
just finalized.
Yeah. We'll just
I
say,
think the group just agrees that it's finalized
Okay.
and ready to go forward for approval by the board.
okay, so can we consider this final with the changes of just cleaning up numbering and whatnot? Figure we don't need to waste time tonight doing that. Cool.
Agreed.
Allison, I don't know if you want to do the cleaning up, or if you want to email this to me, I would be more than happy to do the cleanup and then send it back to you, whatever's your preference. Okay. Moving on. OSSRR document. Ryan, any updates?
Yeah, so I was just talking to Allison right before. She's starting to work through the open items. What she was telling me was that some of them are really easy, some of them are going to be really difficult. And so I think we need to, my recommendation is if it's difficult, then we maybe just scrub and not include that data, and we could do an update when we get the data. But I don't think it's worthwhile putting this off 6 months or however long it might take to get the data, when I think the most important information was the review and the ranking, which that part is solid, right? It's some of these open space percentages, and we wanted to understand that CenturyLink agreement that set the percentage of that. I mean, if we don't get the details on that, I think that's minor. So I don't know if there's really anything we need to discuss. I think as Allison has time, she'll provide feedback, and then I'll be able to report. Tracy did take the introduction and wordsmithed it, and it's much better. So thank you, Tracy. There was the only thing at the beginning is we wanted to add how much has been done since the original, and I thought that was a really good recommendation. But I think what we'll include, what I recommend we include, is the number of acres acquired rather than the number of properties, because the number of properties gets a little bit tricky when you try to figure out. Like, for example, there was a property called the Lutheran property that was on Patrick's. It was never on the original review, and I don't know if it came available after then, but then then it was purchased, but it kind of gets tricky. So I think I might just do an approximate, at least the ones I know, number of acreage, but I think acreage conveys better than number
Way better.
anyway. So
Yeah.
I'll just rough that in, and I'll try to, I might want information on tract H and A, because those would be included in that, wouldn't it? So if I could, even just a rough number, I'll email you about that. But
Acreage, you mean?
yeah, just acreage. Maybe you have it, or actually, yeah, we should have it.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
tract A is.
Oh, I always forget about that.
Never mind. Yeah, 3.2 and.
Our favorite website.
So tract A is 3.2 acres and tract H is 4.73 plus, well, I don't know. Is tract H just one tract, or is it split
goes-
into multiple
It goes
tracts?
further down.
It's because it breaks it up into that, and then
It still goes.
it breaks into that. See
We
how
can
it breaks
estimate it based on, it kind of goes.
Yeah, you could, there's a tool in here
it
where you can
goes-
estimate.
It goes right to there.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's about 10 acres.
Okay.
I'm just gonna eyeball it. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Just say approximately.
So from the group, do you need anything over the next month, or we'll just
I
circle
don't.
back next month?
My guess is we'll be really close, and I think what we'll do is we'll recommend anything that was difficult, what we recommend to make the changes on. I guess the other thing to mention is, remember, we talked about, there was that whole section on the different financial pieces and those definitions. I was able to actually, after a lot of searching, dig out from various sources most of those. And so what I think I might do is just use those and just put them as footnotes as the reference as to where I got it, and just leave it at that. There's two that I couldn't find, but I can reasonably guess what they mean. But I think we should review those as a group to make sure we're comfortable with that. But other than that, I think we're in good shape.
Okay.
So that's where we're at.
Perfect.
Hands right where these, right, it's kind of right there.
Well, with that, that moves us on to updates and look ahead. There was actually just one thing that jumped out at me while we're talking about that. Sorry, we're jump back to the work plan. One thing ProStack does in their work plan is for scheduling annual joint meeting with the board, they actually write like something like preferably in January or something, so they don't get knocked all the way down. Because I know those meetings can sometimes last the entire quarter. Do we have any preference to write preferably January, early February or something like that? Or should we just leave it as is?
Leave it, I mean, we've always been in January, but I guess if we want to keep it in January, we should write that.
I think we were February last year.
Or February, but we've
Yeah.
always been in that first 6.
I don't think it's necessary then. I think we're fine.
So this won't switch to, I'll get it. All right, cool. But
Okay.
Really what I want is from here all the way to my
All right, never mind. We'll leave that as is.
Yeah.
Okay. So updates and look ahead. So Allison, do you want to give a quick rundown of the 2018 budget?
Sure. One big change for all the committees is that there was a flat $5,000 given to each committee. And from what I understand, National Trails Day would still come out of that $5,000, but Ashley's contract would come out of the open space amount and not out of OSAC's budget.
How about the, if we send somebody to the COSA conference?
It would come out of
The
that.
5,000? Okay. You don't happen to know off the top of your head how much, or in front of you even, how much we spent on both National Trails Day and COSA this past year?
I want to say National Trails Day, we kept it really low this year. I want to say, was it like 2,100 maybe with the rentals and wildlife exhibitions and supplies? It was pretty low. And then COSA, I think it was really cheap, like under 1,000 for sure.
Oh, I think it was under 500. It was very cheap.
So
So I think,
this is something we can talk about next year about whether we want to add any other events. I mean, we've got a little bit of flexibility in the budget then, because every group gets $5,000, so something to keep on our back burner.
Allison, just to be clear, because I know we've used, that the town has used open space funds before. If you're sent, that's not coming out of the 5,000, or Patrick, if someone from staff.
If
It
someone
wouldn't
from
be-
staff has ever been sent, it has never come out of that budget line that OSAC
Okay.
has used for their budget, for their training and education. It's come out of ours.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to make sure that that doesn't come out, but I don't want to limit you guys from going either. Like,
Right.
I wanted to just make sure that,
Yeah, typically that amount that was there was only used by committee members, even though it's titled as staff or committee members, but it's always been, if it's been used, it's been by a committee member. And then the other thing was, I know Shan Shan Trailhead is budgeted for 2019. So that would give time to work, because a lot of work will have to be done in 2018 with Boulder County. And, they'll be a large part of what's, going to come to fruition on that property.
Okay. Is that it?
Was there any?
So the other two things that I wanted to throw in for the 2018 budget, I think we mentioned it a few meetings ago, but there is not currently a loan scheduled to come out of the open space fund for Parks 1 and 2. That was initially discussed and was in the first draft of the budget, but it did not make it into the final budget.
It's not in this draft that I have either, the
Yeah.
final.
Yeah, my understanding is that there's still discussions about financing, but there's no decision to take anything out of open space fund right now. The other big thing that I wanted to point out, and Mark and Allison, please correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding of watching the board meeting when the budget was approved is that the 3-year loan that was taken out of the open space fund for the construction of Wildflower Park, the board decided to defer the last year payment and instead use that money for the skate park and one or two other items, I can't remember, but the repayment on that is now pushed out a year, if I'm recalling correctly.
Yes, the payment has been pushed out, with interest. I don't know if it necessarily was correlated to the skate park.
They were just
necessarily,
talked
but-
about in the same
yeah,
sentence as usually.
I know we are doing the skate park this year and the pickleball courts.
Pickleball,
That
that's what it was.
Oh, cool.
Something that was prioritized.
Yeah. So just one extra year on that loan payment than what was expected.
My sons will thank you for the skate park.
Skate park's gonna be awesome.
Okay.
Eagerly awaiting construction to start.
So moving on, Zaharias Open House, tomorrow night from 4:30 to 7:30 at the Sports Stable. The developer of the concept, or of the development over at the Zaharias that is being designed right now, is having a community open house. It's not associated with the town. This is literally just the developer putting it on. So if you are interested, 4:30 to 7:30 at the Sports Stable.
How was that publicized?
I
saw it somewhere.
I received
Me
a
too.
postcard about it. I live fairly adjacent to Zaharias, so I'm assuming that's why I got a postcard about it. But I also saw a post on the 0027 about it.
To be clear, then, I would just say if you're I would go as a citizen.
Yes.
And you're not going as an open space
Yeah.
committee member.
I'm hoping to attend, but I might not be able to go.
And we talked about it during the board meeting on Monday, just to publicize it as well, and just to make clear that it's not a town-sponsored event. And I believe town staff has been in touch with the developer, just to make it clear to all the participants there that it's not a town-sponsored meeting, so any public comment that's made there, if they're taking any public comment, it's not official public comment, it's not going to be recorded in the record or anything like that. But this is just one of the things that we always encourage developers when they come in front of the town with concept plans is to have you made any efforts to actually reach out to the community about your plan.
Mhm.
And often we hear, no, why would we do that? So actually, that'd probably be a good idea. So
Yeah.
they're actually doing that. So
And I do know that they presented in front of the Rock Creek HOA. They presented in front of the Saddlebrook HOA, and I know that they also presented to a smaller group of citizens that live in that general vicinity. But I think that wasn't open to the public. It was just more private. So they've had multiple meetings, but this is the biggest one that I've seen, and I think is more all-inclusive than anything I've seen.
And I would also say, at least I know for the Rock Creek HOA, those were not public commented, those
Yeah.
were present, so I don't know if Saddlebrook's was the same, but definitely Rock Creek's was a presentation and not an opening for people to speak about
Yeah.
it, so,
So-
just to Mark's point about how they're handled, they're not, you know, the same way you handle like a board meeting and you have to do.
If anybody does go, I think it'd be great to share how the session goes. If I go, I'll definitely share with the group how things went. Okay. Moving on, the downtown Superior Pond 11. This is added just to make sure everyone is aware of what that is. It is, I don't know if it's technically part of Park 1 or if it was just adjacent to Park 1 over in the downtown Superior. It is basically right across the street, the storm water retention pond.
It's a retention, it's not a.
It was titled Pond 11,
Pond
but
11,
yeah,
yeah.
it is a retention pond.
So we're keeping it? Is that?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So
didn't think so.
the board, 2-3 meetings ago, entered into an agreement. It wasn't an official sale agreement. I think it hinges on an approved FDP down the road, but that area is to be developed if everything goes as planned, it sounds like. Mark, did I mischaracterize that at all?
Yeah, so we approved a purchase and sale contract, but the closing is contingent upon an approval in FDP.
Yeah. So,
But assuming, assuming the FDP comes forward and it looks like we expect it to look, it'll go forward.
yeah. So I just wanted the group to know about it since we've given so much input on Park 1 and the Creek Corridor, and this is going to be quite close to both of those. So just so everyone's aware. Boulder County updates, Allison?
Patrick met with someone from Boulder County, and hopefully in the new year that all of this will be sorted out with this environmental study and maybe some wildlife recommendations. They're working on a couple of different projects, but over the holidays, things kind of slow down for a minute. So hopefully in January, we'll be getting things going.
Awesome. We'll keep this as just one of our standing update items. The Northwest Area Plan survey results, Sean referenced these earlier. I don't know if everybody got a chance to read them. It was a fairly long, all-encompassing document, but one of the trends that at least jumped out at me is there seemed to be quite a bit of support for open space. There was specific notes on the 76th Street parcels about a desire from several residents to keep that as open space. And then just generally speaking throughout the document, there was a just running narrative of a desire for open space. Again, I don't know exactly what's going to happen with the Planning Commission and the next steps. If anybody watched their last meeting, they're kicking around what they're going to do, whether it's a full-blown small area plan or update to the comp plan. I don't know if they know exactly what's going to happen, but I think it's just something that we'll continue to monitor to see if there's any input we can provide. If anybody else read it and has other comments, by all means.
I can only echo tons of support for open space and a lot of, unfortunately, angry responses about overbuilding and traffic and et cetera, so, I don't know.
All right. Standing updates, Joel, Archimag Greenway.
So I sent everybody right before this meeting the latest information I had gotten from the Stewardship Council. It's got an attachment that's kind of standing updates and information about it. I haven't heard a lot on Rocky Flats in the last 2 months. It appears that things are still kind of going forward at a kind of a glacial pace is what I would describe it as.
And Alice, I think it was Allison or Patrick, I can't remember which one of you guys circulated the document from last month's meeting that we discussed about the testing that Boulder County and the other jurisdictions wanted to move forward with. So I think that's probably going to be a big thing that will dictate the pace.
Yep.
If I had to guess.
Well, that was my question. You mentioned that you thought mid-summer that they would start, but does that meaning starting construction, but not done, right? I mean, it sounds like
Yeah.
this testing and all that is gonna drag out for a while.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, summer of 2018 was the latest date that I've seen kind of publicized. Now, I think that's wildly, vague.
Oh.
I mean, they haven't done any construction there. I mean, you can drive by there. There's nothing that's been done. We've seen the plans of where the trails have gone, and the alignment changes every single time you see a new plan. So I'll be surprised if there's anything there, but I know that they were talking about a soft opening, like in summer of 2018, but that's the last date I've seen publicized.
They're built with the Welcome Center and all the construction they need to do. That seems pretty quick.
It does.
And I've got to think that the lawsuits will pick back up once they start doing things.
That would be my
Yeah.
thought. Those got dismissed because there was an official plan, so I assume the second that you
Yeah.
get an official plan, that those groups will
Well, there was
refile their suits.
There was some settlement. I just did a Google search on Rocky Flats News within the last month, and it says Rocky Flats settlement approved on December 6th, as well as there being a Rocky Flats Cold War Museum now.
Yeah, the settlement is related to the claims of people that work there or live in the area. That's been like litigation that's been pending for
Years.
like
Okay.
decades.
Yeah, that was with Dow Chemical, not the government, though, correct?
Right. Well, it was a number of parties. But yeah, I think it was the private operator and the successor interest owner of whoever the operator was.
Yeah.
Before they filed for bankruptcy.
Shan, I don't know if we have any updates.
I don't think we have any updates until we have
The meeting.
the meeting in January.
Well, budget has it for.
The budget.
2019, which is good news. Yeah, I was going to say, well, yeah. So that
It's
kind of
exciting.
says that everything's going along, but
Mhm.
I think that's one of, that's great news to hear that, but I don't think we should do anything until we have that official, like, yes, you can go off and begin, like, putting a plan together and activities together.
Yep. That wraps up the agenda. Is it?
I actually have one thing just to say, not about that, but, so in January, we'll have our leadership elections. By bylaw, I am off the committee in June. So I just want to remind folks of that because I'm not going to throw my hat into any leadership elections since I have to come off mid-year by my term will end. So I just wanted to remind folks of that now so you guys can think about it and think about how you might feel about, throwing your hat in for one of the positions or both in January.
What positions are we actually supposed to have?
Just chair
and vice chair.
We have to have a vice chair?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, but that's it, right?
But that's it, we can't have
Okay.
any
We
more
cannot
than
have
that.
anything else.
We can
tried
have the
that
dual,
once.
right.
Yeah. We can't have anything else beyond that, but we have to have those two, and like I said, by term limits, I have to step down. So I will do Trails Day and then the June meeting as the closeout, and then I have to
Man.
move along.
So when you're done, are there any exceptions to that? Like if we're short on people, how does that work?
That's a good question.
I assume by bylaw, I have to step off for, I think it's a year, right?
Nope.
Or something, I don't know.
ProStack just went through this maybe 6 months ago. One of their members termed out and then put their name back in the hat, and I believe got reappointed.
Oh, you're kidding. Wow.
Mark, were you on at that point? I can't remember if that was before this board or the.
I think that was before my time, but I'm sure we can figure something out. I mean, our sheriff just fifth term, so
Yeah.
there are ways.
If you
If
so
you're-
desire.
yeah,
If I
if you
so
so
desire.
desire,
No, it's
absolutely.
not even more that, but I guess, because when we came on, the term limits was a big deal, that people had to step down, so I don't know how
Yeah.
that would truly fly in the community. It might be a different
I think
feeling now,
given the
but,
number of vacancies that we have right now.
Yeah,
it's
that's
kind
true.
of like
that's true.
form over substance.
Exactly.
I know. Okay. Anybody else have anything for committee? All right. Meeting adjourned.
Oh, I do have one question, because I took some notes, but did anybody officially?
Oh, shoot. Yes.
I did, they're meh, I'll send them to whoever.
Okay. So you'll be the meeting person. Send them to Patricia and I.
Okay, I took notes as well.
Yeah.
We're all gonna be
Yeah.
fighting for this
Yeah.
one.
See work plan and.
I would be like, I have these notes. I did my one, you know.
Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
And you, thank you, thanks for everything.
Did you save this?
Is his husband, you just actually put in, because you still have to review everything and look for all the little, it seems like he's.
Well, I just did that from the kindness of my heart, but I could probably leave all your typos.
I think we three of us read through that.
It has to conclude.
Another Ross record, have you been on track page yet? I haven't, but I was just curious.
I've explored it from a purely official capacity.
Official capacity, good, good.
It is funny to have a trail that goes nowhere on both sides.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
No, it's super nice. You got. I mean, I've driven around through there because I'm allowed. Well, there's a road. You know, we have access roads.
Oh, you go down the ditch road?
Yeah.
And it's clear that people are using track day to get to it right now.
Well, it's so easy
Well,
because
it's
the
a staging,
construction
it's a
road.
staging area, a little bit.
I saw
Plants and
a lot of bike tracks going
Oh.
onto it. I mean,
It's,
yeah.
I think it looks really nice.
Oh yeah. I can't wait.
So it's next to something.
Yeah. Oh, you too. Yeah, I'm glad to be home. I was gone until last night. I got in late last night. And, whoops. And I was like, I'm staying home. I'm not going anywhere else.
Like, I'm done.